Is one of Delaware's premier restorers of stained glass church windows. Scorchy brings us his colorful story on this week's edition of Scorchy's Corner.
Dean Goslee works in stained glass. His specialty is restoring church windows. As you may well imagine, Dean Goslee is not a pioneer of this art. Extensive use of stained glass began in the early 12th century, quite a bit before Dean's time. Given the windows in the Canterbury Cathedral were made in the year 1180, now 815 years later we caught up with Dean Goslee in his Eden, Maryland workshop, following in the footsteps of these artisans of the ages. He too was working on church windows.
Where does this go, Dean?
This goes in the Mount Pleasant Church up in Laurel, outside of Laurel, Delaware. Mr. Richard Stone is the gentleman who's contacted me, and there's 11 windows, and I'm doing them one at a time to take apart and redo them.
Pretty old, isn't it?
It's probably 75 years or better.
Dean Goslee began restoring precious memories 22 years ago.
Mr. Brittingham down in Signpost, Virginia, he's the one asked me about doing some repair work on his church windows. So I went down and took one window out and fixed the window, and I ended up doing all of his. And then on top of that, from word of mouth, I worked on them from Cape Charles, Virginia, all the way till Wilmington, Delaware.
Dean Goslee's work is smitten with the aura of the past.
And every piece of stained glass tells something about somebody, someplace, or somewhere. You know, Washington, D.C., the Washington Cathedral, you go in there, and every window in there tells a story about something, time of history, or some person in history. So it is an art. It's like painting with oil. You're just doing it with a solid material.
To Dean, working with stained glass is a release mechanism. He is like a little boy who wandered away and got lost in the past.
Really rewarding to restore a window. You see, these windows, some of them I've run into is 75 to 100 years old. And for me to be able to take the window apart, put it all back together, and the good feeling is when I get it done and someone says, well, what did he do? And that's the good part about it, because you don't want to change it. You just want to restore the artwork for somebody else to enjoy it for another 100 years.
Do you feel like your next job will always be better?
Yes. Every job is a better one. You just keep growing and keep learning.
And you love it.
And love it. It's really rewarding.
Dean Goslee, guru of stained glass. Scorchy wandering our Del Marvelous land for WBOC News.